And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Howdy folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Barbarian. It's the Invasion, 2nd edition. I never played 1st edition, so this was new to me. It's a very Conan-looking cover, and the game itself looked like this immensely miniature-heavy game, but we got to come up with some sort of name for this style game, because this ain't a miniature game. It is actually a Euro game with miniatures used as the pieces. In fact, you can buy a version of this without miniatures. There's a lot of games in this category these days where they have these big gorgeous miniatures, which is fine, but this is actually a worker placement, push your luck style game. Let me show you. There's a lot going on in this game, but it's not that complicated. The game's going to take place over 6 rounds. There's some random cards put here. You'll have a feast every other round and a monster each round. But basically, at the end of these rounds, if you pay these resources, you'll get a certain amount of victory points. And if you don't want to pay and get some points, you can take some resources instead. That's what happens on a feast day. On a monster day, you need to pay a certain resource as tribute, or you're going to lose points, and then also something else that you can possibly do to get victory points or what have you at the bottom of each of those. So what players are going to be doing is they're going to be conquering lands. That's a main way to get victory points over the course of this game, and they're going to be doing so in a unique worker placement, which involves this rotating board. As players take turns, you're going to be placing 3 workers on the board. Sometimes you'll get a special ability that allows you to play a 4th one. The first one you can put in any of these open spots on the top. After that, you can jump down to other spots. So if I'm here, I can go to either of these 2 spots. Now these boards are going to be rotated, so they kind of touch multiple areas. So when you come down, you can go into any of these areas here, and then the next one's rotated even a little bit more. So as you do your first one, I might go to this space as my second one, and then I can jump all the way down here for my 3rd one, and if I have a 4th one, I could place it down here. But you are restricted. So that first one, you got 6 spots to pick from. Then once you go there, you'll have 4 spots to pick from on your next one. Then once you go there, you'll have 4 spots to pick for on your next one. Now, there are abilities and things that will let people rotate the boards, and so you'll be able to rotate them a certain number of clicks, essentially a certain number of sections, which can change where you can place things. When you place on the board, many of them will give you resources. Some let you go to battle, some let you move up on tracks, but some give you victory points. But that's basically what they're going to do. They're going to give you resources and warriors. They're going to let you go to battle and collect gods and chieftains. And so let's talk about a few of those actions. Each player has their own player board, and you'll be keeping track of 6 different resources here. You'll start with some, and you'll be gaining or losing them. You also start with 3 different types of warriors that you can gain, and you can buy more warriors whenever you go to battle. You can see the cost of each warrior below them. You also will each start the game with a god power, a god that you have. These guys are going to give you abilities that you can use once per round. So this one actually lets you rotate that middle thing, or it gives me a resource of my choice and a victory point. As you take gods, they're also worth a certain number of victory points as you play through the game. Chieftains are very similar to gods. You'll be able to get chieftains as the game goes by. But the main thing about chieftains is they have a one-time use. So you'll be able to use them, but then they're discarded and they go away. And then there's also building cards that you'll be able to get over the course of the game. Building cards cost resources to build, but they'll give you resources at the beginning of each round. So buildings can provide you with resources, and they will score victory points at the end of the game. This one, for example, gives you 2 points for every god card I have at the end of the game. There's a few other things. There's going to be an honor track that players will be keeping track, and as you move up this honor track, you can get bonuses as you pass them. And then there's these other tracks down here. Now, moving up on these tracks is going to determine how you fight over in the other one. Not all of them. Some of them, this track here, for example, whenever you get a resource of that type, you'll get more resources, extra bonus resource. And this track here, the number of buildings that you have that you can activate each turn. So even if I have 3 buildings in my tokens there, I can only activate 1 building per turn. But most of them have to do with combat. So let's talk about combat. Players are going to be conquering regions, and then again, you're all on the same side in a sense, not in the game, but thematically you are. So you're going to start from this land and try to conquer areas that are next to you. Once that area is conquered, anybody can move into another area and conquer it. And when you conquer things, you're going to be getting these victory points here. Now, when you conquer an area, you are going to be attacking it, then you'll be drawing cards here, and the deck that you'll be drawing from is going to be matching essentially the background of the area that you're going into. And you'll see there's 4 different color backgrounds, and you'll draw from that particular deck. That deck shows you what kind of warriors you will likely need. Like, you'll definitely need these big warriors, and you might need these warriors a little bit less, but you won't need the archers in this particular deck, while another deck you might. When you go to war, you're going to draw a certain number of cards from the deck. That number is how far you are on this track, and that's going to match the color of the token that's in the spot. That token's worth victory points, but also if there's a red token and I'm not even on a red track, I'm drawing 6 cards, but I might want to move up this track, so I'm only drawing 3 cards. Not to mention all these tracks here, if you're the first one to the end, you'll score bonus points. But let's say I'm here and I draw 4 cards. So I'm going to take 4 cards and draw them one at a time. So this one says I need to spend 3 of the big warriors. So let's say I had 3, and so I just spend them. I spend those 3 warriors. If I spent an extra warrior and an extra one of these smaller warriors, then I would get an extra 7 points. But no. I just spend those. And then I turn over the next one. 1 more big warrior. I turn over the next one. And then the next one. Sometimes they'll give you bonuses as you take them. This lets me move up on one of these tracks on the board. But you're going to have to turn over that many cards. For each card that you lose, you're going to take a penalty. And the penalties are listed next to the color. So, for example, this, if you lose the blue one, you lose honor. If you lose the gray one, you'll be losing cards. And if you can't take these penalties, you'll lose points. You will conquer the region if you defeat at least half the cards you turn over. If you do that, then you're going to get that point token. Also, the first person to conquer an island will take this bonus 3-point chip. And each island also gives a certain amount of bonus points, so the farther you go down, the more points you'll get. And finally, at the end of the game, you're going to look at basically how many different areas you've conquered in an unbroken chain, and that will score you more points. So that's basically it. Like I said, you'll play through 6 turns. You'll do the final scoring over there and a few other final scoring cards that you might have, and or these tracks. You'll get some final scoring for those, and whoever has the most points is the winner. The components of the game come, and it all packs very nicely inside multiple rings in the box. This bottom ring is in here. Now, this ring itself, which is, a good chunk of the game, this comes out like this. I'm okay with it, but what's weird about this particular ring is that the middle ring and the top ring fit in nice. This bottom one shifts some. Not a big deal, but that's a small problem with the game. The miniatures themselves are really nice miniatures. They're also really not necessary for the game. This is the deluxe version with the miniatures. The card quality is good, the artwork is really well done, and the symbology is fine. I don't really have any problems with how the game looks at all. I also really like that the boards have indentations here to keep everything. I will say that these plastic tokens are not so easy to stack up on each other on the tracks on the board, but that would be the only thing I complain about. Other than that, this game looks gorgeous. The rulebook has some holes in it. The rulebook is not the best written rulebook, but other than that, great component quality. The last thing I'll mention about the components also is that these special powers, you get these special power tokens, they don't fit in here. That seems crazy. I mean, well, you could smash them in. Now, I just set them on the top, not a big deal, but that bothered me a little bit. And again, I think the book actually shows me what the non-deluxe stuff looks like. I think it looks fantastic. The meeples, these discs, in fact, they might be even easier than these because these miniatures, while they're great, you know, maybe if they were painted, they would look really good. You know, moving these down this row here, having little purple treasure chests and stuff. But at that point, I think I'm just being a little picky. But yeah, this might be a problem for some folks. Now, I kind of called down the fires of judgment on games with bad rule books in first editions. It's a little bit mind-boggling to me how a second edition rule book can miss some basic stuff. For example, in this game, when you're drawing these cards, we'll say draw 6 cards and resolve them. Do I flip them all over and resolve them any way I want? Is it one by one? The rule book literally doesn't say. Now, I went online and found this, but even online, I had a question or two. I asked it. I still haven't heard from the designers about that, and I asked it weeks before recording this video. So I found that to be the game itself is not that complicated. It looks like this big complicated thing. No, it's place some workers, you cascade them down on that circular mountain of whatever, you move up tracks, and then you flip these cards when you attack lands. There's also a whole little module included in my set about hunting animals and things, but I didn't really get into that, so I can't really speak to that. So let's just talk about the base game. I really like it. I mean, like I said, I'm going to ding this a point because of the bad rule book and stuff, but the gameplay itself, very entertaining. The worker placement is neat. I don't know what the thematic reasoning is that you are kind of cascading your workers, but I don't care. It's fun. Now, it does cause a bit of analysis paralysis because when you put a worker out, you're not only considering what action you're going to take, you're considering what future actions. I would tell you to not look too much into that because there's a lot of gods and stuff that can rotate the board. The board also rotates automatically at the end of each round, so perhaps you shouldn't get too caught up in looking too far ahead. As it is, it's essentially get resources, use resources to buy troops. But the troop thing is where I felt the game shines a bit. With these decks of cards, I draw them. I figure out how many I'm going to draw. Do I have enough warriors to cover that? Probably. At least I need to cover half the cards, so I get the token. And then after that, hopefully I won't lose too badly. And as I draw them, I especially like the ones where they say you can pay an extra warrior or so. And I can do that then to get extra stuff, but I'm not sure that I'll have enough guys to fight the rest of the cards then. That's a cool concept. I really like that. Now, yes, the warriors in this game are essentially just resources. They're just resources that you spend. And for that reason, I can see some people not being as excited about the game because they'll say, well, it's promising us, look at that guy with the... That's not in the game. Yeah, I think it is. It's a battle-themed Euro game, and for that reason, I enjoy it. I also like moving up those tracks. Moving up those tracks is fantastic. Which tracks do you move up? Do I move up the boat one? The very top boat one says what islands you can go to. You can't even go to that farthest island unless you move your boat up farther. There's shields. You can move up that one so that when you take a negative hit from a card that you can't defeat, it blocks the negative thing. The more of those you have up there, the better you can handle that. The ones with resources, the ones where you draw fewer cards. Drawing 6 cards is a lot. I'd rather draw 2, thank you. Also, moving up these tracks gives you bonus points. Now, side note here, there are bonus cards and things, buildings and stuff that give you points. There's a couple that I feel are inherently more powerful than the rest. There's some that give you points for every conquest token that you get. And you have to get conquest tokens anyway to win this game, so everyone gets those. It's not like it's a strategy to get them. And you can get more of those than you can get most other things. So these building cards that give that seem more powerful than the rest. I feel like there's a rules translation where it's the number of different color tokens you take, but I don't know because, again, they didn't answer my question. So I felt like those might be overpowered. Other than that, there's all these cool god powers and chieftain powers. None of them felt overpowered, but they all feel neat. It's neat to have several gods in front of you, and then you're like tapping them on your turn and doing things. I especially like putting that fourth person down because that bottom row has really good stuff. Like one lets you make an extra attack, one lets you take a god and a chieftain, one lets you get 5 victory points, one gives you 1 resource of every type. There's just a lot of good chunkiness in this game. I do wonder if it's going to not do as well, because a lot of people are going to look at that and think it's a war game, which it's not, and then be disappointed when they play it. And a lot of people who would love playing this worker placement game will look at that cover and say it's not for me. Fortunately, I fall in the category where I like the theme and I like the Euro game, so it works really well. And also, I can tell you all this very thing. So it's a neat thing. Is that worker placement rotating thing a gimmick? Surely. But it's a good one, and it's a fun one. And then there's lots of tracks and honor points, and then the drawing from the deck to see how many people you beat. It's just an entertaining, good system. The game also scales well, which I like. It's fun. Check it out. I'm Tom Vasel. You've been watching Dice Tower, and we've been taking a look at Barbarians: The Invasion, 2nd edition. Dice Tower Judgment approved.